everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Brewing. Today's episode is another brew with us from the Malt Miller, and this time we're going to be looking at Siren Craft's flagship IPA, Soundwave. This IPA is all about punchy fruit with a hint of bitterness, and we're aiming for a clean malt base to act as the perfect clean vessel for delivering those juicy hops. Siren Craft hasn't really tweaked the recipe much since coming to market, but they have attempted to try a few different water profiles to try and get those hops to really punch through. So today, to try and imitate that, I've gone for a hoppy profile on Brewfather, which has given me a dry, bitter sulfate to chloride ratio. And this can be achieved by adding more gypsum than calcium chloride to the water when setting up your water chemistry. The recipe is a simple malt base with marisota for the fermentables, with some added wheat and dextrin malts for head retention and body. Hops wise, Citra and Simcoe are going to be doing the heavy lifting, and there's going to be a dry hop on around day 2 of fermentation. I used the delay start function on the BAT to get the mash water ready to go first thing this morning, so the mash water's ready, let's go. That's the mash and boil complete. Just going to drop in these final hop additions, and then it's time to transfer and ferment. The brew's just cooling down now to about 18 degrees before I transfer, and while that's happening I thought I'd take this quick opportunity to show you this bit of kit, which is the hop drop kit. As this is a dry hopped IPA, I'm going to be using this hop drop kit for the first time, so quickly just to walk you through how it works. This will attach to the top of the uni tank, and the butterfly valve allows you to maintain a sealed environment. When you're ready to dry hop, you can take the top off, fill this steel pipe with your hops, then at the top you've got a gas post in and a pressure release valve so you can flush the dry hops with CO2, minimise any oxygen intake when you dry hop. That's how it works, and I'll show you it in action later in the brew. So one last thing to do today, and that's add the yeast. For this brew I opted for the Lallemand American East Coast Ale yeast, so open this up now, add it to the fermenter, and then today is done. And now that I'm ready to ferment, I'll attach the hop drop kit. That's the brew day over, done and finished by 2:15, which is a record I think. All that's left to do now is for me to clean up, and I'll see you once the fermentation starts. Hello, welcome back. It's been 10 days now since I pitched the Lallemand New England yeast, and it's now finished a very healthy fermentation. Despite a stated lag time of 24 to 48 hours, this batch was actually going by the next day. Using a tilt to track the gravity, it actually appeared as though this batch was fully fermented in around 5 days. A couple of samples that I've taken so far have been full of stone fruit and apricot flavours, which has been really nice. It's not too dissimilar from the Lallemand Verdant IPA yeast that I've used previously. As it's now day 10, the recipe calls for a dry hop dose of around 150 grams of the different hop varieties used in this recipe. So for the first time I'm going to be trying out the dry hop kit that I've got attached here, an offering from Brew Tools. I've already added the hops, and it's time to sanitize, purge and drop. So the way the hop drop kit works is I will pump in now some CO2 from my tank, and I'll be able to purge multiple times using the pressure release valve on the other side. and that will help scrub as much oxygen as possible from this dry hop dose. Currently I'm using the kit in the way that Brewtool supplies it, with the pressure release valve and the gas in both on the same level at the top. But I have seen setups with T-fittings at the bottom that allows you to have the gas in at the bottom and the pressure at the top, and in theory that gives a better flow of the CO2 through the hops and out. But I'll run a few cycles of CO2 into the hop drop kit and that should be good enough to get a lot of the oxygen out of these hops. The CO2's on, so let's purge. Wiggling the handle from side to side like this will just help get any last hops trapped on that butterfly valve into the beer. So that's the hops in. I've just put a blind cap on the top for the time being. I'm going to leave the hops in for 2 days as the recipe says, and then we'll be ready to transfer. The hops have had contact time now for 2 days, so I'm ready to rack the beer into a keg. Unfortunately I've not been able to cold crash this beer due to the high temperatures and lack of glycol chiller, so what I'm actually doing is just going straight in with the finest mesh filter on the inline filter kit. I'm going to purge the inline filter kit now with CO2 and then I'll be ready to rack into the keg. Okay, the day has finally come, the beer is ready and it's now time to do the taste test. So in front of me I have the homebrew Siren Craft following along with the malt miller recipe, and on the right I have the Siren Craft Soundwave IPA. In terms of colour and clarity they're both very similar. The homebrew version is slightly darker, slightly more orange. The orange seems to be showing up quite a bit more on the camera, but otherwise very similar in comparison. So next to the smell. So again, both brews are very similar. There's a lot of pineapple and tropical notes coming through on the nose, which is really nice. So finally, onto the taste. I'll take a sip of the Brew with this clone first. All the pineapple notes in the nose are coming through in the taste just as strong. There's a really nice subtle mango in there as well. And it finishes with quite a nice bitterness. There's a sweetness to the beer that's not coming from the malts, it's coming just from the hops, which is giving this IPA a really juicy taste. So next onto the Siren Craft Brew. So the Siren Craft Brew has got all that tropical flavour as well, similar to the Brew with this clone. Combined with the tropical notes from the hops as well, the resinous flavours make for quite a nice rounded beer. Overall I'd say the recipes are definitely very similar, there's a lot of similarities between them. Personally my preference is the homebrew just because it's more juicy and I prefer that in an IPA, but the Soundcraft IPA is also a really well-rounded beer, so I've now got 2 Siren Craft beers to drink. Cheers! So once again, I think the malt miller have done a great job in creating a clone recipe that tastes really similar to the original and is also quite flavoursome and easy to brew. I hope you've enjoyed following along with the video and hopefully you get a chance to brew this one yourself because it is definitely delicious. If you've enjoyed the video, give a thumbs up and a like and don't forget to subscribe, it really helps. If you've got any questions, of course, feel free to leave them in the comments. And I'll go ahead and enjoy these 2 brews. Thanks very much. See you next time.